The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
The BVU Beavercast is proudly supported by alum and two-time All-American Monty Mers and High Country Search. Elevate your search at highcountrysearch.com.
Welcome to the Lodge. It's time to settle in for the Buena Vista Wrestling Beavercast. Join host Jason Bryant and head wrestling coach Jeff Brees as we talk all things BV wrestling. Now, on to the show.
Another episode of the BV Wrestling Beavercast. We are getting ready for a new season of Division III college wrestling in Storm Lake. Today, our guest Ernesto Garcia in his first year as an assistant coach with the program. You might remember that name. He's been on the squad the last couple of years. So, first of all, Ernesto, welcome to the Lodge in the Beavercast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do a little geography lesson because you are one of two wrestlers or athletes that have spent time in the town. I guess it would be a town. I don't know if you can call it a city of Fernley, Nevada. Let's just talk about your hometown just for a little bit. One, how big is it? And two, how the heck do you make yourself your way to Storm Lake from Fernley?
Well, I think Fernley is actually considered a city now. It's actually, I think, about 20,000 people there. So it's actually bigger than Storm Lake. And it's got a Walmart. So I think that qualifies you as a city nowadays. But yeah, so Fernley's kind of like any other smaller town. Lots of farming and stuff done there. Kind of got my way over to Iowa when I got a call from the old head coach Savon and decided to check it out. And I thought no better place to wrestle than in the Midwest and in the Iowa Conference.
Yeah, so when it came to that transition, when you were recruited by one coach and then got to wrestle for Coach Brees, what were your first interactions with Coach Brees and Coach White like?
Oh, honestly, I was not really sure if I was ready to go, if I was going to like the switch to the coach. But it ultimately ended up being great, and I loved it. But at first, the expectations were so high, I wasn't quite sure if I was ready to make that transition. But they definitely helped a lot in getting me on board with that. And just I believed in their philosophy, and they believed in me. So it made it a lot easier to transition.
Going back to Nevada just for a bit, Fernley outside of Reno, and there's opportunities to get down to Tahoe, and of course Reno is listed as the the biggest little city in the world or something like that. I think that's what it is as you're coming into town. What was the wrestling culture like in Nevada, and what were the opportunities you had to wrestle in college coming from there?
Wrestling in Nevada recently has improved, and there's a lot more opportunities, but for the most part, it was small. The good kids were kind of in the small towns. Like Winnemucca, they have a good youth program, and they're really into wrestling. Fernley was kind of getting there into wrestling and stuff like that. But there weren't many opportunities as far as like traveling. There weren't a lot of kids who wanted to go out and do national tournaments and stuff like that. So you were kind of on your own for that. And at the time, it's just me and Andrew that were really, really pushing to go wrestle at the next level. So we were kind of on our own to go do our own things. We would do some camps and stuff. In the summer, we'd head on up to Boise State, do a camp and an all-star tournament there. But really, yeah, it was just kind of small stuff. You had to do what you could. Not too many big things happening.
You mentioned Andrew there, who had spent time on the team as well. And what was it like to just say, "All right, we're going to do this. We're high school teammates. We're gonna now be college teammates"?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, he's from Fernley and he's been there his whole life, and I moved there when I was in 8th grade. But kind of as soon as we started wrestling together, he was always a bit bigger than me, but we bonded really well, and we kind of had the same goals. We took it really seriously. So we were really close in high school as far as wrestling and on the mat went. And then we just became really good friends because of that. So it was kind of cool to be like, hey, we want to be really good make a name for ourselves. Let's go to the Midwest, do this thing together, and see what we can make of it.
So who made the decision first, you or him?
I did, actually. He had his like lifelong dream was to go to the Naval Academy, and as you know, it's a pretty tough thing to do. I think they only select 2 kids from a state. He made it to like the final rounds of that and was hoping to get through to that. But he got edged out by a couple crazy good athletes that we had from Nevada at the time. So then he was like, he brought up the idea of wrestling, and I said, yeah, let's do it, man. I already plan on going there, so it would be great to have a good friend of mine to come with me.
Oh, when it comes to Nevada, I'm just going to assume you'd mentioned Winnemucca, which many people might know just because of a Johnny Cash song that mentions it. But that looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere. You're quite not out in the middle of nowhere, just outside of Reno. But it seems like the population centers in the state are obviously, Reno, Carson City, and then down in Vegas. When you got to have competitions, I mean, is it just going across the border into California or trying to find competitions in Vegas? I mean, how did you guys, the high school season, how's that structured with such a gap distance-wise between the two population centers?
Most of our tournaments and stuff would be up north where we're at. There's a lot of schools in Reno that we would go to. So some of the bigger schools will host some pretty big tournaments. Fernley hosts a big tournament. Winnemucca, actually, their tournament at one point in time was like the biggest in the state, so we still go there. And then we'll hit a couple tournaments in California as well. But yeah, for the most part, we stay up north. I know the state tournament flip-flops from the north and the south every year, so you're either in Reno or you're in Vegas, depending on the year. And then also they have the Sierra Nevada Classic and the Tournament Champions up north as well.
But so if you're going to drive, I'm looking at it geographically, if you're going to drive from Fernley to Vegas, how long would that take?
I want to say anywhere from 6 to 7 hours, depending on how fast you drive.
Which you've learned by moving to the Midwest is like, that's a Saturday.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much any trip that we go to, especially up here in Northwest Iowa, is a long trip.
So when you first stepped foot on campus, did you take a trip out to see it, or did you just decide to go to Buena Vista sight unseen?
I came out and saw it, and the campus was beautiful. The people were nice. Really, that's kind of how it goes for anywhere in the Midwest. In comparison to people on the West Coast, they're a lot nicer. You feel a little bit more welcome. So it was kind of an easy choice for me, especially once I got on campus and I saw everything.
Yeah, and then you come into a nice Midwest school and you got an East Coast guy as a coach now, which totally changes the dynamic of everything.
Yeah, it did for sure. But ultimately, I think it made me a lot better wrestler and a competitor because of it.
When you opted to come to Buena Vista and say, all right, I'm going to wrestle here, and you stuck around, and what was the biggest thing you were trying to do as a college athlete? Was it qualify for nationals? Was it just get better? What were your athletic goals coming into the program?
Well, when I first got here, I honestly had no idea what I was in for. And then as I started wrestling, I was getting my butt kicked every day. I almost that freshman season almost was content with just kind of being there. I was going to work hard and stuff like that and see what happened. But I didn't really have any goals that year. And then when Jeff came, I had an opportunity to slide into the varsity spot, get my butt kicked in a couple duels, and kind of really saw what level I was going to have to be at to succeed. And he believed in me. Sean believed in me. And so I was just, from then on out, I kind of set my goals on, let's get to nationals. Let's be an All-American. And then on the flip side of that, I also wanted to be a scholar All-American because I knew if I couldn't get it done on the mat, that I can control a lot of things in the classroom. So I could at least get that done.
So when it came to the classroom, looking at major-wise, your website says you were majoring in athletic training. Did that change throughout the course of your career, or how quickly did you decide to say that's going to be my major?
It did change. I was in the athletic training program through the first semester of my sophomore year. And then I kind of switched it just a hair into exercise science. I thought I was a lot more serious and selfish about my wrestling time, and athletic training required a lot of observation hours and stuff. And I figured I really liked exercise science and strength and conditioning stuff like that. So I I made that switch, one in part to wrestling, but two because I really did enjoy the strength and conditioning side of exercise science as well.
So, what are you planning to do? You're looking at coaching for a career here. Obviously, strength and conditioning has had a lot of options that have blossomed within the college athletics world. But where do you see yourself in 10, 15 years? I know that's a hard question to ask somebody that's just out of college. But what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, I think ultimately I would like to be a strength and conditioning coach at the college level. But I mean, as of right now, I'm kind of taking it as it comes. This opportunity here, coaching here, is kind of popped up almost out of nowhere, unexpectedly, and I enjoy it a lot. So, I mean, that could impact my future career options as well. But yeah, as of right now, I look to I'm gonna take my CSCS certification, get that, and then look to get into strength and conditioning down the road.
So, from an athlete's perspective, what does a strength and conditioning coach mean for you? I mean, it's one thing to want to do that to help athletes, but wrestling is a different kind of strength. It's usually a different type of conditioning. What is one thing that your wrestling background you feel will help you if this is your chosen career path?
I think the biggest thing for me is not even so much on the lifting side of it and everything like that. I think it has to do with the values and stuff that I've had and that have been um, given to me from coaches, as far as Coach Brees, Coach White, our strength and conditioning coach here. I think those values and the little habits that they kind of ingrain into you, I think those are some of the big things and big reasons why I want to go into strength and conditioning, because I can kind of bestow those upon a lot more athletes and give them the chance to develop good habits and values and stuff like that.
When it comes to overall fitness and health, these are things that when you look at the world of exercise science, it's so much of what you're putting into your body, what you're expelling in terms of energy. What were some of the key things about the sport of wrestling going through your studies that you discovered it like, hey, wait a minute, this all seems to jive. Now, wrestling is like, this is a great thing for exercise, to learn exercise science, and then you can bring things into the classroom that, if people are looking at it from a football or basketball point of view. I mean, the differences in the sports have got to make for some interesting conversation there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with wrestling being so, you have to pay more attention with your weight and stuff like that. Um, I think I definitely paid a lot more attention to what I was putting into my body and kind of how it affected me. Um, I had a professor who his main thing was losing weight, and your weight has everything to do with calories in versus calories out, which sounds so simple. It's just like if you want to lose weight, you put less calories in your body than you're consuming, which is essentially that is how it goes. But with a sport, athletics in general, but especially wrestling, where you are losing weight, the types of calories that you're putting in your body make a huge difference. You got to be getting like your protein and stuff like that. And if you're not getting those, then it doesn't matter if you're losing weight. You're going to feel like garbage when you go out there and compete.
When you look at the sport of wrestling, first of all, when did you first discover the sport of wrestling, and what made you kind of jump into it?
So my first experience with wrestling, I think I was a fifth or sixth grader, and my cousin was actually wrestling. I think he was in eighth grade at the time, and I went to one of his tournaments and watched him wrestle. I didn't necessarily hate it, and I didn't love it. And then when I got into middle school, my mom was just like, do every sport that you can do, give it a try, and see how you like it. And so seventh grade, I wrestled. I had some success, and I just really enjoyed the sport really as soon as I started competing, and I've stuck with it since.
When we get the opportunity to start coaching at your, at the school where you wrestled at, what do you think is going to be your biggest hurdle in terms of developing as a coach?
I mean, I've kind of experienced it already. Just knowing the guys so much, and being friends with, I just graduated, so I was friends with a good majority of the team. So just kind of transitioning into that role of more of a coach. I mean, we've always been pretty close and everything, so we can joke around and stuff, but kind of finding that line and separating it. All right, now I'm coach, and we got to take it a little bit more seriously, especially in things like outside of the wrestling room, like one-on-one meetings, making sure they're taking care of classes, all that grades, all that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of been the biggest challenge so far. Also, just kind of adjusting to being an athlete for so long, and all this stuff gets taken care of for you, and you just don't think of what it takes to actually get done. And then you step into the office and realize there are a million things that the coaches do that you have no idea that they do.
What about the aspect of going from athlete to coach when guys that were your teammates who you were hanging out with, in the off season and off days and things like that, all of a sudden now you're not just in a leadership position, you're in a leadership position.
Yeah, it's a little different. The guys will stop in the office and everything, and I think it's been a lot easier for me because they have handled it very well. They've kind of been the Coach G or Coach Garcia thing, which has made it a lot easier. They give me a higher level of respect than if I was just their friend or their teammate. So they've made it a lot easier on me.
When we look at goals and goal setting and things that you do to try to attain those goals, what are you going to try to draw from your experience in certain goals you didn't hit to try to help your former teammates and now your athletes to try to attain?
I honestly think me being in the position that I am and not getting to my goals, I think it's going to help me a lot helping them achieve their goals, because I kind of know where my downfalls were, all my weaknesses, and kind of maybe things that I didn't do, or just different ways of thinking about it so that they can achieve those things. I know that one of my bigger things was kind of on the mental aspect of things. And my senior year, I kind of broke through that, and was able to succeed because I was able to break down that barrier. So I kind of know the techniques that I use to help get through that, so I can help some of our guys break through those mental barriers, or some of it might be physical barriers, just things like that. It definitely is going to help a lot.
What are some things that you've learned in the immediate tenure you've had so far with Coach Brees and Coach White that you had talked about? There's so many things that you didn't even know that went on. What are some of those things that you've been thrust into? Be like, wow, this coaching thing, a lot more than just getting on the mat.
Yeah, I mean, it's something just as simple as ordering gear. You wouldn't think it's such a difficult process, but when you're involved with a business, a university, there's all these kind of hoops that you have to jump through, and you have to communicate the budget with different people, and they have to approve it. And then you got to rely on the company who's getting you your gear to do it all right and to get it to you at certain times. And so just something that you would think would be simple, like ordering gear, is a whole different ball game. Yeah, I think it's just some things that get taken care of that just seem so easy. There are actually a lot of things to it.
What about weight management paperwork?
Oh, I haven't really gotten into much of that. I think that would be a whole nother challenge for me.
Now, we look at the goals of the program. When Coach Brees first stepped in and outlined his plan for the program, and you said you'd been recruited by Sivan before you, and then going through the process, What were some things that even though that maybe the scoreboard didn't show it, that you feel that the program has progressed in your time there?
I think that the biggest thing is the culture has changed so much. Even the 4 years that I was here, if you walk into a workout of any kind, whether it's lifting or wrestling, the guys are high energy. They communicate really well. They're focused. They're really excited to be there. Where maybe before guys weren't as excited to be there, or they would kind of put their head down. And so I think that's been a big difference, that all the guys that are here, that are in the room, are committed to being great, and they're willing to do all those things that are required of great individuals. So that's probably the biggest difference. Everybody, the whole level of skill and fight in the room has increased a lot too. But I think the biggest thing is guys are ready to go and be successful, and they're willing to do the things that it requires to get there.
What are some of the things you feel that you can bring to the coaching staff that further pushes their agenda and what you just outlined, the fight to win, the giving it their all type of situation? I mean, how can you add to the coach's mantra and plans in the future?
I think I have a unique perspective, having wrestled and competed with those guys, lived with them practically. So I kind of know their mindsets already, and so I can see where they're a little bit weaker, the things that they need help on. Because I think we have a lot of talent in the room. It's just getting them to believe that they actually have talent. And so I think I have a unique perspective, because I know where they're at mentally, so I can help push them past that point and get them prepared for the greatness that they actually have inside them.
When it comes to being an athlete, now being a coach at BV, how much of the school's wrestling legacy do your teammates carry, and you now as a staff carry, say, hey, we need to get back to where we were when we were hammers in the top level of Division III?
Oh, I feel like it's almost a daily conversation whenever it gets brought up about being great. I know me and Sean will have conversations in the office, like we were there, and we don't like bringing up Wartburg or anything like that, but there was a time where they were not very good at all. And it just, all it took was them saying, why not us? And now look where they are. And I think we're in a very similar position to do something like that. If guys are willing to do everything the right way and believe in themselves, and just have the attitude, why not us? That'll carry them a long ways.
I think right now maybe it's Ernesto going, why not me, when as Coach White is off getting married and the first week of practice is rolling around. How do you get stuck? It's like, wait a minute, how did you get out of the first week of practice, Coach?
Yeah, he probably needs it though. He works crazy hard. He does all kinds of things that aren't even necessarily wrestling related. He does some things for the school just because he's so good with Photoshop and stuff like that. He put together this whole graphic that's actually going to go in 2 places within the field house, just because we got an email asking how this certain graphic looked, and he said, I don't like that at all. And then put together one real quick, and he says, I didn't even put that much effort into it, but everyone else loved it. And so he has all kinds of projects outside of just wrestling stuff that he does too. So he's busy all the time. And so this little honeymoon thing is going to be nice for him. He should come back pretty refreshed and ready to go again.
Official NCAA practice started this week, and we look at the perspective of, okay, there's all these outdoor practices. You guys got one coming up. We'll talk about that in a moment. But what's it like the first day of practice, your first day as a coach, compared to the first day of practice, your first day as an athlete?
It is a little different. But there's the same level of excitement. It's always a new year, big things coming up. And it's the same thing as a coach. I just can see how well that they're preparing and how much progress that they've made. And so it's exciting as a coach because I get to help them, you know, work towards their goals, and I'm going to be able to see them achieve those things. So it's the same level of excitement. It's just from a coach's perspective.
Maybe a lot more takedowns on your end, the first day of practice as a coach versus your first day as an athlete.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I got a takedown on my first day of practice as an athlete. So it's definitely a huge change as far as that goes.
Let's talk about what we got as we record this on October 11th, 2017. Fight on the Forum. Let's explain that. You were handing out shirts for this thing earlier before we started.
Yes, sir. We have what we're calling Fight on the Forum. It's this Saturday, October 14th. And basically what it's going to be is it's going to be an outdoor practice. We're going to set it up in the middle of campus. It'll be on the Forum, kind of right in the middle of everything. So students walking to even breakfast in the morning will see us and probably stop by because we're really the only event going on, and it's also family weekend. So people will come and watch us, but we also sold shirts. I think we sold about 200 of them. So it looks like we're going to have a pretty good showing for that practice, and then we're going to host a free clinic afterwards for guys to come down and they can just get a little of the college experience.
When you look at the student body and its impact on, the other student athletes, what's it like to be a wrestler at Buena Vista? With how do the students treat you guys? I mean, how are you guys viewed within the student body?
I think most teams, I say most teams because there are mostly athletes here, but most people, you'll hear them and they'll say the wrestlers are their favorite team on campus and everything like that, which is always good to hear. I know that if you go to any kind of sporting event, all the guys will be there and they'll be cheering loud and they'll get crazy. So they kind of bring a fun atmosphere to events, and that's just kind of how they are at all times. So people tend to gravitate towards them and really like who they are. So it is a pretty good place to be a wrestler for sure.
When you look at your decision to come to Buena Vista and then going through your life as an athlete, what was the most surprising thing that you got out of your time there as an athlete that you were not expecting coming in?
Oh, wow. I think I didn't really expect it to impact my actual life as much as it did. I know I developed a lot of values and my mindset changed. And overall, I think I became a lot better person. And I didn't actually expect that to happen. I thought I was just coming and I was going to wrestle and do the best I could, and we'd go from there. But yeah, I'd say I grew so much more as a person. And I'm very grateful for that.
How much did you know about Division III wrestling before coming to school there?
Not very much. I knew about Wartburg, didn't really know where they were at, but as far as D3 wrestling goes, I didn't really know much until I was recruited. Then I looked into it, and that's about it as far as my knowledge went until I stepped onto campus.
So with knowing what you know now, if you were to say go back to Fernley High School and start talking to kids who there may be a good wrestler or any high school in your home state, because there is no Division I wrestling, there's no college wrestling within the state of Nevada in terms of the varsity level. If you were to sit there and you see athletes, I got to go D1, D1, it's it. That's all they know. What would some of the things that you've experienced lead you in a sales pitch to say, you know what, you really ought to look at Division III?
Well, one thing I've seen so many kids transfer from the D1 level and then go All-American or win national titles at the D3 level. So you don't necessarily have to go D1 to be great. And then I would also tell some of those kids that they're out of their mind because that the level at D3, I think I don't think it's that far off of D1. I know that there is a talent, there are a higher talent, but as far as the work that they put in, I would say for the most part to be great at the D3 level is what it takes to be great at the D1 level. Some people just aren't quite there yet to go wrestle D1. So I would tell them to really think about what they're doing, and why not go wrestle D3, and then if you crush everybody and want to go D1, then you can transfer later. But I know I got the opportunity to wrestle a few kids at the D1 level as a D3 wrestler, so it's a good place to test the waters to see kind of how you would compete at the college level, without maybe ruining the experience for you as well. I know some D3 programs it's pretty rough just to go into the room every day and get beat by, the even the third string guy in their lineup.
So how much are you spending time paying attention to wrestling? I mean, was outside of BV and the Iowa Conference, I mean, you follow the D1 scene at all, or are you wrestling junkie, or is it just I coach, I wrestle, I hang around my teammates, my athletes?
No, I mean, when I first came to college, I wasn't super into following wrestling. I would watch like nationals, D1 nationals, and I would watch Olympic level wrestling, but really it only took a couple years, I'd say, into my sophomore year where I kind of really became a wrestling junkie. And I follow all kinds of wrestling accounts on different social media, and I'm making sure I'm keeping up with just all the little things, even something like Nathan Tomasello out for 3 months. Like, I know all that kind of little things, all those little things now, whereas a few years ago I would have been clueless.
Be like, what? Wait, who? No,
Yeah.
now we look at that though. I want to go down that off the rails there a little bit and just talk about wrestling as a whole, because we've had guys on this show and other shows here on the network that they're at schools, they're at smaller schools, so they can actually be fans of D1 programs. Do you say that you've got one school at the Division I level you follow more than another, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm a fan of that team?
I wouldn't say so. I think
that's a safe answer, by the way, because you are in the state of Iowa, and there's 3 fan bases that could get very angry with you.
Yeah. I'm more so followed just kind of individual guys. I'm fans of individual guys more than anything. And then I don't know. I think I've kind of developed a liking for NC State just because of Brees, and I kind of want to see them do well just because he came from there. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there's one team that stands out over any others as far as what I'm a fan of.
So who are your favorite athletes to watch?
I'm a really big Gilman fan.
He wasn't one of the D1 guys you had to wrestle, was he?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I didn't have to wrestle anyone quite at that level. I was close though at Luther, but no, I didn't have to wrestle him. That's probably good, because I think that would have been my sophomore year. That would have got pretty scary pretty fast. I'd say Gilman is a favorite of mine. Tomasello, I really like Tomasello. I'm trying to think of a couple other guys. Aymar, I'm a big Aymar fan. Was pretty bummed to see him lose to Chenzo, but I think that would be a good kind of rivalry. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Snyder, of course, can't forget about him. Yeah, I'd say those are my main favorites.
So as we circle back, as you're in just hours still, I guess, into the official start of the season here, in your first year on staff, what is the one thing you want to accomplish this year as a coach? If everything else falls off the wagon and gets run over by a car, what's the one thing you want to get done this year?
I want to have an All-American. I believe we have several guys on the team that can get there, whether they believe it right now or not. I know some guys definitely know that they're capable of doing that, and some guys don't really have a clue. But I think as we as we work through the season, they'll have some realizations. And so I think the one thing I want is to have an All-American.
All right, I think the last question we're gonna float around with and mess around with is, since you're on the coaching staff now, I think you're required to have an opinion on the new realignment situation within Division III. Had you given that much thought as an athlete, looking at the structure of Division III qualifying, and has your opinion changed since they've got some new region approved for this year?
I mean, overall, as an athlete, I was just like, I have no control over it, so I'm gonna have to wrestle whatever's there, and I'm gonna have to be top 3 to qualify and all that kind of things, all those kind of things. I don't know if I really have much of an opinion on the realignment as a coach either. Like I said, I don't really have much control over that, so I think the best thing that I can do is help train these guys to get them to what they need to be. I know it is going to be, I think we're going to be the Central region now. I think that's new with the new realignment, so that'll be a little bit different, but we're either Central or we're Midwest.
I think a lower Midwest, I think, is the actual
lower
title
Midwest.
of it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, and I always kind of thought we were supposed to be the Midwest anyways, just because that's where we're located. Other than that,
don't you know college realignment? No, the names don't necessarily. Let's look at the Big East, dude. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Boise State was almost in the Big East. Let's look at that. Hawaii and Louisiana Tech were in the same conference at one point.
Yeah, so apparently it doesn't have to make much sense as far as location goes. They kind of really throw anyone who they want into each region. So yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on that. Just kind of got to wrestle and get the job done is really what it boils down to.
You know, this also coming from somebody who thought UConn, it was strange why UConn was in the Big East. When I was a kid, I thought UConn was in Alaska, but realized, University of Connecticut. Anyway, Ernesto, where can they, now that you're a coach and you can actually be followed on Twitter, or at least endorsed to be followed on Twitter, where can they find you on social media and keep up with your exploits as your first year as a college wrestling coach?
All my social media is under Ernie Garcia 103.
Yeah, old weight classes style there. Going back to the old school with the 103, huh?
Yep. It's pretty simple. I'm able to keep it consistent because nobody else seems to have that. So it worked out well. I was able to be consistent throughout all my platforms, which is nice.
All right, Coach Garcia, been a pleasure having you on the show, and good luck this season.
All right, thank you.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.